In the news tonight, the UN Secretary General calls on countries to accept nearly 500,000 Syrian refugees for resettlement over the next 3 years. Members of Libya's UN Bank Presidential Council arrived by sea in Tripoli as explosions rocked the capital. And France's president says he will not push ahead with plans to change the constitution, including a clause allowing convicted terrorists to be stripped of their French nationality. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Royal Highness Prince Faisal bin Hussein, the regent, received a U.S. congressional delegation led by Senator Claire McCaskill. The talks at the general headquarters of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army dealt with ways to forge stronger ties between Jordan and the United States, as well as a number of issues of common interest. A number of senior army officers and the U.S. ambassador were in attendance. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged world nations to rise the challenge posed by the greatest refugee crisis since World War II. He called on countries to accept nearly 500,000 Syrian refugees for resettlement over the next 3 years. The UN chief spoke after opening a ministerial conference hosted by the UN Refugee Agency in Geneva.
The biggest refugee and displacement crisis of our time. The world must rise to the challenge. Providing hope means providing pathways to a better future. Neighboring countries have done far more than their share. Others must now step up. When the process is properly managed, resettling refugees is a win for everyone. Vulnerable children, women, and men find safety and support. For host countries, refugees can bring valuable new skills.
The United Nations aims to resettle 10% of the refugees who are now in neighboring countries by the end of 2018. Filippo Grandi, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, said he expected countries to make pledges to resettle Syrian refugees during two summits in Istanbul and New York this year.
Our target, as you know, is to offer resettlement and other legal pathways to approximately, and at least, I would say, 10% of the Syrian refugee population. So it's about 480,000 people who we estimate are the very, very vulnerable among the refugees. So far, pledges amount to 179,000. More will be expressed today, hopefully, and more will be expressed in the next few months.
The White House said it would be a non-starter to include Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in a new ruling coalition government to end the civil war in the country. White House spokesman Josh Earnest ruled out Assad's participation in a new government. The statement came after the Syrian leader said it would not be difficult to agree on a new Syrian governing coalition that included opposition, independents and loyalists. Assad said in an interview with a Russian news agency that support from Russia was key to his recent military victories in Syria. The Syrian army, aided by Russian airstrikes, continued to fight Daesh militants after retaking the ancient city of Palmyra. Fighters belonging to Daesh group fired rockets and used heavy machine guns in the town of Qaryatain in central Syria. Sources said militants were trekking through arid land, riding in military tanks and firing rockets off the back of trucks. Russia's defense ministry was quoted as saying its air force flew 23 night sorties in Syria against 54 targets of the militants in the last 24 hours. Some 100 Syrians crossed into Jordan over the last 24 hours. A military source said border guards provided escort to the new refugees who entered from various points along the frontier. It said troops provided the refugees with the necessary aid before transferring them to refugee camps. Jordanian Royal Medical Services personnel also treated sick refugees on the spot. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi said he would present his new cabinet lineup to Parliament tomorrow. The legislature has given Abadi a Thursday deadline to announce a new cabinet to fight corruption. Abadi announced more than 6 weeks ago that he wanted to replace current ministers with independent technocrats. He faced resistance from rivals who fear it could weaken the political patronage networks that have sustained their wealth and influence for more than a decade. Failing to deliver on long-promised anti-corruption measures could weaken Abadi's government, just as Iraqi forces are building up to try and recapture the northern city of Mosul from Daesh militants. However, it was unclear whether the parliament would approve the new cabinet lineup. Shiite leader Muqtada al-Sadr is pushing the prime minister to appoint nominees not affiliated with political parties. A UN human rights official condemned the killing by an Israeli soldier of a wounded Palestinian last week as he lay on the ground. Christoph Heines, UN Special Rapporteur on Extrajudicial, Summary or Arbitrary Executions, said it appeared the point-blank killing in Hebron was an extrajudicial execution. Video taken by Israel's B'Tselem human rights group last Thursday shows a soldier firing into the head of a Palestinian as he lay on the ground in Hebron in the occupied West Bank. The occupation army said the 21-year-old Palestinian stabbed and lightly wounded another soldier. The army said the soldier was arrested, though not yet charged. The incident brought to a boil debate over the army's use of excessive force against suspected Palestinian assailants. Several loud explosions followed by heavy gunfire were heard over the Libyan capital Tripoli in the early hours. The cause of the firing was not immediately clear, but Tripoli has been on the edge amid speculation that a UN-backed unity government was about to travel to Tripoli from Tunisia. The violence came as members of Libya's UN-backed Presidential Council have arrived in the capital Tripoli. Media sources reported that 7 members, including Fayez Siraj, the head of the council, and the prime minister of Libya's unity government, arrived at Tripoli's naval base after traveling by boat from Tunisia. France said it will provide its full support to the UN-backed Presidential Council and the prime minister. The Yemeni army, backed by local fighters, seized control of parts of Aden held by Al-Qaeda. The army is pushing to clear the hardline group from its stronghold in the southern port city. The government forces took over the central prison, surrounding buildings and presidential areas in Mansoura district after 3 days of clashes. A security official said they captured several fighters while others fled. Her Majesty Queen Rania Al Abdullah explored the venue where Amman Design Week will be held in downtown Amman in September. Supported by the Queen, Amman Design Week is an annual event that will bring together local, regional and international designers to showcase their latest work, share ideas and promote design and innovation. Event co-directors Abi Sikali and Rana Beiruti briefed Her Majesty on the progress of the planned project. Sikali said the event aims to capitalize on Amman's diverse demographics to build a city-wide platform based on forward design thinking and innovation as key components of Jordanian society and economy. Beiruti explained that downtown Amman was chosen as a venue for the event because it combines heritage and modernity. At the Ras Al Ain Gallery, Her Majesty met with Amman Mayor Aqil Biltaji and a group of 7 young Jordanian urban designers and architects who have volunteered to carry out urban planning research for the city of Amman. The designers told Her Majesty that they are working with the Greater Amman municipality on research that produce fresh ideas to revive the area and improve its public spaces. Thousands of teachers across the kingdom voted in an election to choose a new central committee of their syndicate. Ministry of Education Secretary General of Financial and Administrative Affairs, Sami Salaite, said 89,000 members of the Jordan Teachers Association were to cast ballots at 336 polling centers countrywide. Students were off classrooms as the Ministry of Education has declared the day a holiday. Salaite, who is chairman of the syndicate's Higher Election Committee, later said that 61,696 male and female teachers had cast ballots, or 72.6% of the total number. He said ballot boxes closed at 5 p.m. without extension, and vote counting got underway immediately after. An Egyptian man accused of hijacking a passenger plane and diverting it to Cyprus told police he acted because he wanted to see his estranged wife and children, saying, "What should one do?" A Larnaca court ordered him to be held in custody for 8 days on suspicion of hijacking, abduction, threatening violence, terrorism-related offences, and 2 counts related to possession of explosives. Here's more.
59-year-old Egyptian Saif Eldin Mustafa made his first court appearance a day after allegedly hijacking a passenger plane and diverting it to Cyprus. He's reportedly told police he acted because he wanted to see his estranged wife and children. Now he's being held on suspicion of hijacking, abduction, threatening violence, terrorism-related offenses, and 2 counts related to possession of explosives. The latter counts stem from his claim that he was strapped with explosives. He surrendered after a 6-hour standoff, and all 72 passengers and crew members on board were released unharmed. Officials say Mustafa will remain in custody for 8 days.
French President François Hollande said he will not push ahead with plans to change the constitution, including a clause allowing convicted terrorists to be stripped of their French nationality. He made the announcement after Parliament failed to agree on the measure. The plan's withdrawal is a major blow for Hollande, who had introduced it in an address to Parliament at Versailles 3 days after Daesh killed 130 people in Paris. The initiative had divided lawmakers and caused months of heated discussions on what critics said was an inefficient and purely symbolic measure. The clause for confiscating passports hit a dead end last week after the opposition-controlled upper house of Parliament approved a different version from the one adopted by the socialist-controlled lower house earlier. I noticed that parts of the opposition have been hostile to any revision of the constitution, whether it is regarding the state of emergency or even the independence of the judicial authorities. I deplore this attitude because we have to do anything we can under these serious circumstances to avoid divisions and overbids. I have decided, after having talked with the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate, to end this constitutional debate. Phyllis Beebe is a centenary in the American state of Wisconsin. She celebrated her 107th birthday with friends at a birthday party in Altoona. Beebe, who learned to become a teacher, said faith was the key to longevity. Her actual birthday is tomorrow, and she turns 9 years younger than the world's oldest known person, Susanna Jones, who is 116. Colombia beat Ecuador at home 3-1 in a World Cup qualifier, giving Ecuador their first loss in the group. AC Milan's Carlos Bacca scored 2 goals for Colombia, and Sebastián Pérez scored 1 as Ecuador struggled to gain their balance. Ecuador and Uruguay remain at the top of the South American group with 13 points, followed by Argentina with 11 points. Mexico also scored or secured their spot in the final round of CONCACAF's World Cup qualifiers with an easy 2-0 win over Canada in Mexico City. The result gives Mexico a maximum 12 points with 2 games remaining in the penultimate stage of the North and Central America and the Caribbean qualifying competition. Japan's Kai Nishikori kept control of his fourth-round match against Spain's Robert Bautista to win 6-2, 6-4 and advance to the quarterfinals of the Miami Open. Nishikori next meets 16th seed Gael Monfils in the quarterfinals for the first time on the Miami surface. The Frenchman beat Grigor Dimitrov of Bulgaria to reach the quarterfinals. And finally, the weather outlook: relatively cold in much of the country, with some low clouds and northeasterly moderate to brisk winds. The chance of frost in highlands and the Badia is also in the forecast in the late night and early hours. Tomorrow we'll see a slight rise in temperatures with pleasant spring conditions across many areas, with warmer conditions in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. The Gulf of Aqaba should also expect a warm day tomorrow, with northerly fresh winds and somewhat choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end here our top stories once again. The UN Secretary General calls on countries to accept nearly 500,000 Syrian refugees for resettlement over the next 3 years. Members of Libya's UN Bank Presidential Council arrived by sea in Tripoli as explosions rock the capital. And France's president says he will not push ahead with plans to change the constitution, including a clause allowing convicted terrorists to be stripped of their French nationality. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Balqa. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.